Hello and welcome to a special episode of Super Geeks. I'm your host George. With me today is my good friend Carlos Pedraza, who runs Axe Monitor. How are you doing, Carlos?
Great. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year, and how was your Christmas?
Santa got me just what I wanted.
Which was what? No, you're not gonna tell us, are you?
Sure, I'll tell you. It's this little pin that looks like a little award pin, and all it says is "worst." My friend who gave it to me, we're always saying to each other, "You're the worst." No, you are. So she got me the pin, and I guess I'm officially the worst.
That's awesome.
The worst what?
Just the worst. Isn't that enough?
Unambiguous there. I mean,
it's far-reaching. Yeah, very.
And of course, with me also, and more people might pop in the middle of this episode. But Will, how are you doing?
Pretty good. Happy New Year.
Technically, I guess, 2 days now? Yeah, tomorrow night, midnight.
Well, we're not going to see each other until next year, so Happy New Year.
That's a good point.
We've got a whole year to wait before we do another podcast.
And how was your Christmas ball?
It's
are you
quiet.
a humbug guy, or are you?
Not really. Well, we'll talk about this because we're going to be talking about Carrie Fisher's death, right? So
we will, yeah.
So I'm just like I've already talked. I don't know whether I talked about that on this show or it's another podcast, but I'll explain what my feelings are with regards to Christmas.
If you guys want, you might as well. You segued. I mean, I don't care which order we start in. If you guys want to talk, if we want to talk about Carrie Fisher, let's start with that. I mean. You know, we'll end on a happier note and start with the bad.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Start on the worst and then head at, talking about the geeky stuff at the end, yeah.
Well, that's a very optimistic way of looking at the world, given that we're about to start a new year.
Well, yeah.
Hopefully with less death.
You want to finish, 2016, as far as celebrities has been a really bad, seems to have been. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just the ones that they're more well-known, but people die every day. But the thing is, with Carrie Fisher, she had the heart attack or the heart condition, and she died, on Tuesday? 2 days after Christmas?
Yeah.
And then a day later,
her
mother died.
Right, Debbie Reynolds, who's also a famous actress.
This, to me, this is what brings my not real animosity towards Christmas. I really don't get into the Christmas mood anymore because I remember when I was 13, 14, my grandmother died 2 days after Christmas. She was in hospital over Christmas. She had cancer. And so it was a horrible Christmas, right? My dad died on the January the 2nd, right? So this whole holiday period isn't a very happy period for me because it brings up bad memories. So I'm just linking about who's Todd Fisher, right? He's the son and the brother that's left, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
She has a daughter, Billie Lourd, who does that show Scream Queens. She was
okay. Well, so she's got another daughter. Okay, but I was thinking because he was there with his mother when she had the stroke. I'm like, I'm trying to put myself into his shoes.
You're talking about Debbie Reynolds.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Because his sister died. His sister died, and he was there. He was there with his mom planning the funeral. Then she had the stroke, and so she died. I mean, that is a horrible experience because I've lived partially through this. It's not a great feeling, especially at this time of year where everybody's happy. Oh, all the kids are running around with their new presents and so forth. And here you are sunk in this little pit of hell. And you're like, oh my, how do you get out of it? And so I'm thinking about all of the celebrities that have died this year and they've been well known and well documented. And I'm like, has this been just an extraordinarily bad year for big name celebrities to croak, die, leave the planet? Or is it just that we have become socially, big and, able to, peer into everybody's world that we just now recognize, oh, they died, they're not on Twitter, everybody knows everything about everybody. So I'm just like, how bad has this year been as far as, millions of deaths anyway, but for celebrities, it seems to have been pretty bad.
What do you think about that, Carlos?
Well, I think the fact that everyone's noticing it means that we've had a higher number of celebrity deaths than we're typically used to seeing. in any given year. And, I think the interesting thing to me sort of anthropologically is just how people have such opinions on this. I mean, someone I know on Facebook went off on a bit of a diatribe saying, basically, grow up, death is part of life, and why, you don't know these people. There are people dying all the time. Why don't you care about them? What's the big deal about celebrities? Why are they so important? And I guess on one level that's true. For me, I think that when we mourn the death of a celebrity, it's not just that we're affected by the death of someone who was famous. We're affected by the death of someone whose life had an impact on us.
I think that's exactly what it is, because I know that for me, Carrie Fisher. I'll get into that in a minute. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'll get into the impact of this particular celebrity. So continue. I'm sorry.
Sure. I mean, you're welcome to interrupt any time, of course. But I think the point is that it's not just about the death of a person. It's about a little piece of yourself that dies too, along with them, and how you grieve that. So it's not that you care about the deaths of people less, because there are people who die from horrible things all the time, every day, and certainly those are things we need to face up to. But it's the idea that there's a part of us that's formed by our relationship, even if it's just an artistic one, with an actor, with a singer, with a musician, that has informed part of who we are. And so that makes it very personal and goes beyond just the notion of celebrity, and really to the notion that a piece of ourself, of our own history, has fallen by the wayside. And how do we grieve that, particularly when it's not just the person that we're grieving for, but also our own experience. And yeah.
Well, Princess Leia for me, I mean, Carrie Fisher, I mean, I was 7 years old when the original Star Wars movie came out. They now go by the chapter title, which is A New Hope, of course. So that's what everybody's referencing. It's A New Hope. Of course, that's correct. Back then, though, it was Star Wars. That's what you called it, because that's the only thing that was out. And
I still do.
Yeah, I call it the original, but it's like Doctor Who. As William Hartnell would say, he's the original. Or I'm sorry. The guy, Richard, something that played him in The Five Doctors, said that. I'm the original, you might say. Well, but Carrie Fisher was not just a royalty in terms of, I mean, everybody said this stuff on the news and tributes and Ellen and everybody, but she was the first female, well, not the first, but she was one of the biggest icons for a woman who could be feminine, who could be strong, tough as nails, still be a princess, which is the fantasy that all little girls want to pretend they are when they're little girls. No matter what every feminist out there will say, being a princess, I mean, that's important to a lot of girls. And I raised a daughter, and she was always playing with princess toys from Disney, and I have friends who, she's not just a princess, she was the ass-kicking character that spawned generations of people like us to appreciate, not just because of whether we had a crush on her, but just as a character, as an actress, to show that a woman can be a role model, and also how cool is it? I haven't had a chance to ask you, Carlos. I know you've seen Rogue One, and we talked about this in a previous episode, but you weren't able to join us. Real quick, what's your synopsis of how you felt about Rogue One?
Well, I've seen it twice, so that should tell you a little bit of something.
That tells me something, yeah. I've seen it 4 times.
And, similarly, I feel like Rogue One is a direct descendant of Carrie Fisher's Princess Leia. It's weird that so soon after the movie premiered,
exactly.
and that you see this younger version of herself, huge. I saw it on a huge screen, and just days later to have the person behind that image, die.
She also mentioned on a celebrity roast I was watching how she did sign away back in 1977 her likeness to George Lucas. So they didn't even. A lot of people have asked, what is the future hold for likeness rights when it comes to celebrities that die, and will it be like, does the family have to try to sue a studio if it's sort of like it started a little bit with the Paul Walker thing, and then this is like the next level. And then the next level, and also, well, Jeff Bridges was not dead when they did his Tron Legacy thing. And same with Robert Downey Jr. in Captain America: Winter Soldier. All they were doing was they were taking the actors and digitally making them younger. This is a whole new ballpark, so there's a precedence being set with the level of technology and how it's improving. And we talked about this a little bit in that review, where do they have to sign away their rights? Are people going to have people sign things? And worry about that, like that the estate of that actor, they might get upset because, like, for example, John Wayne's family, if they make a movie with John Wayne's likeness using the digital recreation, is their family going to suddenly pipe up and try to sue the studio because you didn't get our permission and we don't like the fact that you're using his likeness, blah 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 blah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, the thing is, unless they've specifically signed away those rights, they still own them. They're still entitled to them. So, and in Carrie Fisher's case, to be fair, while she may have signed away her likeness rights to George Lucas, back in '77, or whenever it was,
they had for the toys and all that stuff. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. But the other thing to bear in mind is, she and Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill got a cut of the take of the film.
That's true. Yep.
Which made them very rich people. So it's not like they haven't benefited from it beyond just what they earned as as their salary for making the film. So I don't think you can say that she was really taken advantage of in this deal.
I don't think she would think so either. I'm curious to know if she saw the movie before she died. Wouldn't that have been great to know that she saw that she had the last line in arguably one of the biggest, most successful Star Wars movies in recent years?
Yeah, it's maybe we'll find out. I mean, I'm sure somebody knows, but probably it'll be a little while because we've got other things to work through. But I bet we'll find out eventually.
I just think it's fittingly ironic. I don't even know if that's a term, but let's make it up. Fittingly ironic that she had the last line. She had one of the first lines in the very first Star Wars movie, and she had the final line in the newest one. And it wasn't really her voice, but the character, I just thought that was interesting. So, Will, what are your memories of Carrie? Now, outside of the whole thing about the fact that celebrities have died in 2016, what are your personal memories or fondness of Carrie Fisher as an actress
that's the thing. That's the thing. People, for me, I was, a big Star Wars fan. But as far as, Princess Leia, I didn't really think of her as a sexual being, if you will. I was an 11 to 12. I was a teenager. I was coming into my teenage years. I was born in 68, came out in 77, right? The first one.
Okay, so you're 2 years younger than me. Okay.
So, I'm older than you. You were 7, right? I was 11.
I was born in 70, so if you were born in 68...
Yeah, I'm 2 years older than you.
All right.
Well, I beat all of you. I was born in 63, so I was...
Wait a minute, you were born the same year as Doctor Who? We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I watched Star Trek, but I didn't watch it... Star Wars, sorry. I watched Star Wars, but I didn't watch it for Princess Leia. Because I was a kid. I wasn't... Right. At the time, I was 11 years old. Yeah. I wasn't into girls at that point. I was just coming in... I wasn't even starting puberty at that point. So girls were not interesting me, but I liked the action. I was in the guns and the space battles and that's why I played the video games. That's what interested me. When I saw her in the bikini, this was in 83?
Yeah, Return of the Jedi, opening day, I saw it 83. I never forgot that day.
I'm into 6 years later, so I am now 17.
It was 6 years later, you're right.
Right? So I'm now 17. I see her in the bikini. I'm thinking, holy crap.
I know,
right?
like girls.
That's when I first... And, to me... But I never actually thought of Carrie Fisher as a a woman that I was intrigued by or wanted to, she wasn't this fantasy woman on the screen for me. She was just one of the...
as a character or an actress.
She was just one of the heroes, right?
Right.
She was one of the heroes.
One of the triad,
right?
Trinity.
Right. She was Han Solo, Princess Leia, and Luke Skywalker. 3 of them. They did the whole thing. That's what I saw.
Exactly.
So I didn't.
Woman Superman kind of.
Right. I did not think. I did not see that. Right. And again, because this is where I was coming up. So when I heard of her death, I was like, yeah, I felt sorry, but I didn't have this, deep down. Oh, my heart just dropped into my stomach, and I didn't feel horrible. Even though I had grown up watching her on the screen of Star Wars and so forth, I really didn't have a connection. And I didn't have a connection to a lot of the stars that have died. I felt sorry. I felt a little bad. People die. Okay. I can understand that, having people die around me. So I understand it. Felt bad for their families. I just especially feel bad for Todd Fisher, because he's having to deal with this now, 2 deaths. So that's who I'm empathizing with, is the living, who have to survive and go on after people die. That's that's the hard part for me.
Just to throw this out there before I ask Carlos his thoughts on Carrie Fisher, for those that don't know, Billie Lourd, who it's spelled Lourde, is the daughter of Carrie Fisher and Carrie Fisher's agent. I forget the guy's first name, and she was. So
she's half a sister to.
Well, she should be like a half sister, I think. But, because I think the one you're talking about, I think he's from a different father. I could be wrong. Because when in all the interviews, they mentioned, like, she's the only child of her and, the guy that she married the second time. But when it comes to, the only reason I'm mentioning this is because what a lot of people don't know is Billie Lourd, was in The Force Awakens. She played a role. In fact, she had the Princess Leia buns. In a scene, she was like, did she? I can't remember. She did. She was like one of the people in the command room when they were like figuring out about the whole big weapon there. And she also stars in a show called Scream Queens on Fox, and she wears these earmuffs that have become her trademark thing on the show. As it was at first a joke / homage / parody of her mom's hairstyle. But it became so popular that now the show, they want her to wear them all the time as her thing. So, but she's a good actress. So I'm sure she's hurting. She was so proud to have been in that movie with her mom. Anyways, Carlos, what are your thoughts about Carrie Fisher and Good Memories? Or how do you feel about her as an actress, not just Princess Leia, but in general, or any of it?
Well, I approach it on a couple of levels. And one is, I grew up during the time that feminism really sort of
exploding,
got dug in, and so I always remember her as being this great heroic.
You were born right around the time of the whole burning bras and all that stuff, weren't you?
Oh yeah, those are all childhood memories of mine. I mean, that's during my formative years. That's what was going on, and so she was really the embodiment of that for me. She was someone who was, the head of state, who was, heroic, who was brave, who went toe to toe with the men, didn't need their help absolutely. She, carried her own weight. All of that I just found to make her very interesting as a character and the kind of actress she went on to be. But I also look at her in another way, and that's that, she was also a writer, and she was a damn good one. She was well known in Hollywood as one of the best script doctors in the business.
Yep.
Well, that's something she wrote under her own name, but
that was also sort of a biography too / movie.
Yes, and that'll be the third thing I want to talk about.
Okay.
But this second one really just was a testament to the ways in which she affected a lot of the movies that we've come to love and appreciate, and we don't necessarily know that she was behind them. Here's an example: Good Will Hunting.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, if you've ever read the original treatment for that, it was kind of awful. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck won the Oscar for that screenplay. but that's really on the back of Carrie Fisher. She's the one who made that screenplay what it was, and it was awesome. It was their idea. They're the ones who came up with, the general story.
So she script doctored it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, she script doctored it, and of course, as script doctor, she gets no credit for it because they're well paid for that.
Yeah.
Consequently, it was an Oscar-winning script, and it's largely due to her talent rather than Matt Damon and Ben Affleck's. And no offense to them, because I love both of them too, but the reality is that that's just an example of the fact that her influence on our lives goes beyond just Star Wars and such to less obvious things where she had played an important role, and fixing up bad scripts certainly was among them. The third thing, of course, is the part of her life that was difficult, and it's portrayed
struggles with
addiction and so forth,
and bipolar.
It's one of those things where you really, she got started early in the business, and like so many people who do get started early in the business, they lose their way, and there's so much pressure, and they turn to alcohol or drugs or both to sort of help ease that. She deals with it in a very humorous way, but still affecting one in Postcards from the Edge. But the reality is that she, probably did a lot of drugs at a fairly early age. And I'm no doctor, but one of the things I've read is that can have an impact on you later in life. It takes a toll.
I will only chime in to tell you something personal, which I don't care if the world knows it. I've talked about it. I'm not ashamed of it. Another reason I admire her is I too suffer from bipolar. My type of bipolar is different from hers. I think she has one thing in common, where she got manic. She made a lot of impulsive things, like she would sleep with fans that she just made just because she felt like that high, like I can do this for this person because I am me. And I don't do that. I'm not going to go out and sleep with fans. I'm just saying that.
Wait a minute! You said sleep with fans. I thought the electric kind
have a nap.
I thought the electric kind that blows air on you. Sleep with fans
that may
on.
Be the only kind of fan I have, but
yeah, right. That's because I sleep with fans on because I like the air blowing over me.
No, yeah. Let's put it this way, Will. If you were back in her prime when she was when she was in her big, untreated, I guess, rage, you want to call it, with her life, and she was making tons of money, and that's the biggest thing too, is that when celebrities are bipolar, or it's like the Charlie Sheen effect. It's like if you have all this endless amounts of money, and you have this problem, and you have this thing where you are being put on a high pedestal, and you don't have to worry about money and all this other stuff. You're going to do things that you think at the time that you can handle it, but looking back, she did. She looked back, and she was honest about her life, and she wasn't apologizing. She just said, I think I've learned from it. I don't know. I'm still growing as a woman. And she at least admitted, and she was very candid about all the things that she had been through. She recently had talked about her affair with Harrison Ford, and she just made no apology. She looked at life in a way like, I didn't know I had this problem until later, and then I tried to do something about it. But when anybody suffers from any of these things, whether it's depression, whether it's bipolar, whether it's whatever, once you're aware, as long as you don't ignore it, then if you don't know that you have a certain thing, but even if you do, you're going to go through the rest of your life. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge. It's like if I was crippled in an accident and I had to use a wheelchair. Okay, from this point on, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, and I'm going to need certain resources. I'm going to need my wheelchair. I'm going to need crutches or whatever the case may be. That's kind of what she was doing. She was being self-therapeutic through her art. And when she made Postcards from the Edge, I felt like that was her way of saying, I'm treating myself by being honest about who I am, what's happened to me, and maybe we can make something good out of all this. Tell a story. That's just my opinion. I think that she was a great inspiration to an entire generation of people, like the three of us in this room. So I don't know what to say. I mean, for me, I was impacted when I found out she died. And I went to work, and I told this story on Facebook, but I'll say it here. when I told a guy that's almost my same age, he was 43, I'm 46, he was like doing this prep work for dough, and I work at Pizza Hut, and I said, by the way, did you hear about what happened to Carrie Fisher? And he stopped what he was doing. He said, what do you mean? What happened to Carrie Fisher? And he hadn't even seen Rogue One, by the way. In fact, for some reason, he's against seeing it because he thinks that the idea of the movie was going to be some kind of a blasphemy. I don't know. I think he's still affected by the prequels. I think he's still having that hurt. Anyways, I'm just kidding. But he says, what happened to her? I said, you didn't even know that she had the heart attack. And he goes, no. And I go, well, she passed away today. He had to stop what he was doing, put his stuff aside, and he said, are you being serious? And I said, yes. And I saw tears well up in his eyes right there and then. And because he had tears, I started getting choked up because I realized that, like me, he's from that same generation. Princess Leia. Whether she was a crush, whether she was just somebody we all liked as a character, whatever the reason, she's part of that memory of, like, someone from your childhood onward that affected your life. Like Santa Claus. Like, you remember and you're going to be affected by it. So Carrie Fisher's death deeply impacted me, and I'm really curious as to what they're going to do in the episode. I know episode 8 got filmed and finished.
Yeah, she's finished that film.
Right.
That's what you brought up at the start of this, George. That's what you brought up at the start of this. Is again, I've not read the article, but I've just seen something coming across the wire on my end here that actors are now having to think about drawing up contracts to cover their likeness after they die.
Right.
Because what's happening is they can digitize somebody who was dead. They just morph it over somebody's body. The actor who's playing the actual scene isn't there, isn't portrayed.
Right.
It's the digitized. Yeah.
Mask, right.
So
real quick. Sun Sale just joined us. Welcome, Sun.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Son, it's good to hear you again.
It's good to be with you again, Carlos.
Real quick, just because I don't want to spade on this topic for too much longer, but I will. I'm going to let you keep talking and finish your thought. But I want to just quickly get Sun's thoughts on both Carrie Fisher's passing and the impact of Princess Leia and Carrie Fisher as an actress and a character, and how do you feel about this? And not just because, well, it's your opinion. You say what you want to say.
Well, it's actually kind of it was a double impact essentially for me, because I remember, a lot of people remember Carrie Fisher, but I remember even the later acting roles for Miss Debbie Reynolds too, and she died the day after.
I think it was 2 days, but yeah.
Well, I mean, even so, I mean, you had this acting powerhouse of a family just crumble, and the impact of it is just, I mean, personally, I've spent the last couple of days depressed sleeping, essentially, because it just has hit me so
overwhelmed.
Hard. Those two deaths, and I've not had that happen to me since David Bowie died.
That's true.
See, I don't feel that way. I didn't feel. I mean, I was sad that they died, but when Michael Jackson died, or when any of these big, I'm like, okay, they died. Feel sorry for a little bit, and then I move on. I guess I don't attach myself. I guess, like, I've already gone over what Princess Leia was to me, but I've not attached myself to the actor who played these parts. Yes, I recognize them, and I'd like them to be here and continue, but I'm not depressed. It seems to me everybody's a lot of in depressed state.
Everybody's going to either associate or disassociate a character from how they feel about a person on a personal level in their own way, and I think that just goes to show, like, somebody could be famous and you don't attach them to your consciousness like they're somebody you really know, and other people, they do feel that way, and there's no right answer to that.
No, everybody agrees differently. Everybody's
going to have a different feeling about that stuff. Yeah, and it's like this. Like, if we found out tomorrow, and no, I'm knocking on wood because I don't want this to happen. I don't. If and God forbid it's going to happen one day. He's not exactly like 20 years old. If William Shatner dies, okay, I'm just saying. I'm not cursing or creating a situation here. So if it happens, don't yell at me.
I think we will, George. We'll blame you.
If Bill Shatner...
We'll all blame you. We'll all blame
George,
you.
You just jinxed him. 2016 is not over yet. Still got a day left.
I'm knocking on wood right now. I really am. And if Bill Shatner, God forbid,
Knock
dies,
on your
everybody's going to be having the same kind of reaction. They're going to be like... Three things. They're going to blame the year that it happened. They're going to blame the fact... Okay, not blame. They're going to mourn the loss of the original, because now there's two of them, or three if you count Vic, which I do, Captain Kirk's, and, so it's going to separate, like, the character from the actor. Now, Carrie Fisher has only had... She's the only one that's played Princess Leia, other than the digitized thing and the animated form of her on Rebels, which was a different voice actress. Well, she was the younger Princess Leia. So... You got that dynamic going on. So we go, did we lose Princess Leia? Because we have yet to see how they're going to handle it in the movies. For all we know, the character could still be alive, and they're going to use digital, which would be not a good idea. But you never know what they're going to do.
I think they just need to kill her off. They just need to have her die. So
I just mentioned that she died.
She died in a battle somewhere. Yes.
On the
base. Wait a minute. If they're okay. And I'm sorry, this is going to be so wrong, but if they're going to have to kill her off at the beginning of 9, please have her go in the way Chewie did from the original extended universe. Have her be fighting a battle and a moon just fucking fall on a planet.
That would be kind of funny, actually.
What a way to go.
Have Timothy Zahn write that episode. Oh, no, he didn't even write that one. It was somebody else.
Also, I apologize for my language.
Oh no, you're allowed to swear on Super Geeks. We disclaim that for Subspace Radio. So, like Scott, the guy that runs Subspace Radio, one of our syndicators, he said.
I don't know. There are so many podcasts. I don't know which ones.
Yeah, no, this isn't trouble. You can swear.
Well, let me. You've mentioned.
Watch this.
William Shatner.
Fuck.
What was everybody's reaction when Leonard Nimoy died?
Well,
I didn't.
Actually, there's still more.
But I'm not. I'm not depressed.
Oh,
I wasn't depressed.
But that's a great example, because look at how they handled it, though. They weaved it into Beyond to make his character be informed to the other Spock, and made it part of that magic.
Oh yeah, they did it. Yes, they did it. When they weaving it into the script of the movie.
They should have her either have somebody informed. Like the only thing I want, and then we'll move on to a different subject because we only have an hour for this episode. I only want one thing, and then I'll be happy. I hope that in episode 8, when because they've already filmed it, I just hope that Leia and her brother got to reunite before Carrie Fisher died, so that they couldn't, show that they got to reunite, and they have one conversation where she says, "He's your son, Luke. I didn't know you were my brother." I'm just kidding.
No, that is no. George.
Just kidding. It would explain, though,
Jeez,
a lot of things for the Sith, and the dark side.
No.
That was a bad joke. I'm sorry. I was trying to offer some levity, but it didn't work.
No levity there in that. That's...
Too soon. Hashtag too soon.
You know what?
Look, if you
too gross. I mean, that's just...
Yeah, I could get into a whole subject about... Because back when I was 13, try going through puberty and seeing Return of the Jedi and Slave Leia bikini. I'm sorry, it didn't mix well.
Yeah, a whole lot of young boys went through that.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, yeah, but I mean that's for the first 2 movies. I didn't think of Leia as a girl or a woman that I wanted to have sexual relations, even though I was a child, even though I was teenager. But as soon as I saw Return of the Jedi in her outfit, they put her in that. They made her a sexual being at that point. They didn't have to do it because she was already a badass. She was part of the triplicate. She was the part of the triplets. She was the 3. But when they put her in that, it kind of separated her from the other 2.
Not only that, but it spawned cosplayers for generations.
That's fine. But I mean, to me, I don't know why he did it. Maybe, again, to get the sexual aspect of it in there, but he didn't need it.
You got to remember the whole thing about Jabba the Hutt was the decadence of his lifestyle. He had how many countless slaves?
Not only that, but George Lucas was in an interview. And George Lucas made a point out of saying that his whole reasoning behind that scene and any of that stuff was to show that Leia was so badass, she was the one that killed Jabba. Luke didn't rescue her.
Well, I like the way she killed him. Definitely. I definitely like that.
Right.
But, it to me, again, I didn't understand it when I was 17 years old and I saw it for the first time. I only understood it when I get into my late 20s and 30s, and I was looking at how exploitation is, and I look back at that, I'm like, well, that kind of seemed to be exploitative.
He wasn't looking at it like he was doing that. He was, but how we all know George Lucas is like, he's like that guy who, there's a video that got released about if Star Wars was a woman. It was reuniting with a guy who's the fanboy. It was so funny. I don't know if you guys have seen it. If you have,
I don't think I have.
Yeah, I don't think I have either.
It is so funny. I'll link it to you guys later. Adrian Grady was laughing so hard she was like sharing it all over the place. It's like they make they do a fake trailer for like one of those cheeky romance things where some girl's like trying to figure out her life, and she meets her old boyfriend fanboy, and her name's Star Wars. And then you got the one that wants to reinvent herself because she went through that bad phase, which was the prequels, and she went through and she's trying to reinvent herself to get noticed and fall back in love with the fanboy. I'm sorry, the other way around, to get fanboy to fall in love with her. And so J.J. Abrams comes in like a gay friend with a glass of wine. He's like, girlfriend, we're going to do a makeover. And it was just, oh my God, you have to see it. Anyway, it was hilarious. Oh, it was like it's like Star Wars is trying to get loved again. And it was just the whole metaphor, the whole thing. Oh, it's hilarious. So anyways, the big topic I want to talk about, we had to, of course, pay tribute to Carrie Fisher. And, of course, let's not forget her mom, Debbie Reynolds, who not only was an actress.
Was the grandma witch in Halloween Town, for those who
remember. Oh, yeah.
Very true, but for those of us who love musicals, it will always be Singing in the Rain.
Singing in the Rain.
Yeah.
Singing in the Rain is a classic.
That's right.
I mean, that's a classic movie.
And I've already...
she was 19 when she did that movie.
Which was the same age that her daughter
Carrie Fisher was. That's right.
In Star Wars.
For New Hope. Yep. That's right. And I already mentioned her daughter, Billie Lourd, who is probably upset right now, justifiably so. And we give my condolences to their entire family. Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and anyone else who's close to Carrie Fisher. But the thing is, I think everybody out there who's a Star Wars fan kind of feels like they lost their princess. She was a Time Lord. I'm segueing here. If she was a Time Lord, her name would be the Princess. So let's be real. Or would it be the General? They already have a General though. So anyways, I know that everybody in this room is a Doctor Who fan, and this Christmas special called The Return of Doctor Mysterio just aired, and Peter Capaldi returns as the Doctor. We also we'll talk about this a little bit after, but they have the teaser for Series 10 with the new companion Bill, who they've already introduced in one segment, but we get to see more.
It's going to take me a while to get used to her.
I'll just say it right now, but I'll talk about it more later. I love her. I love her little characteristics and the things that she's doing in that trailer.
I don't.
And just the way that I can feel something like she's going to be different.
She's literally the Marmite of Doctor Who right now.
She feels like Donna mixed with.
Yeah, I've not seen enough of her to warrant my. I'm not going to dismiss her out of hand because again, I haven't seen her in anything because
she's not eye candy for once, which she.
No, I don't care about the eye candy. I care about her interactions. I mean, you've had the ones that have been superior, the ones that have been, thinking that they're better than the Doctor, the sexual, they've had men, women, they've all different types, and they've all had different personalities, which is good. So I want to see what her personality is before I assign love or hate to her.
Before we get more into our opinions of Bill, just on this little teaser, so we'll start with Carlos. What did you think about the Christmas special, The Return of Doctor Mysterio?
I loved it for a number of reasons. For one, it's just been so long since I've seen some Doctor Who.
True.
And I'm a Peter Capaldi fan, so I thought it showed him off very well. It made a nice little reference to him being away for a while, so a little soft to those of us who know he's getting over stuff.
I never thought about that. You're right. They tied in the actual exposition of what happened in the end of the Husbands of River Song, which is the 24-year night, and the fact that
not even that. No. See, that's the thing. What the Return of Doctor Mysterio did actually bridged the gap between last Christmas and this Christmas.
Right.
Exactly.
Because last Christmas was the 20-something years on the planet of the last night of River Song.
Right.
Before she goes off to the library.
Oh, yeah. That's true. Good point.
So this is him coming back with Nardole after having reattached Nardole and going, I've been away for a while.
Right. That's true. And Carlos, what else were you going to say?
The other is I loved the superhero aspect. I'm a big superhero fan. And I was tickled by the fact that the comic book that they referred to was from John Byrne's stint in the 80s of Superman.
Same guy who did the best Wonder Woman art.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big John Byrne fan. John Byrne has done some Star Trek stuff as well recently. I think isn't he the one behind those sort of redone photoplay books that
I can't remember.
One of the comic book companies has
I think
come
you're
out
right,
with.
but I just can't remember off the top of my head.
Anyway, John Byrne is a big Star Trek fan. He did an Assignment Earth miniseries for I think it was IDW, and so forth. Anyway,
yes, it was IDW.
I just loved the fact that it was Superman. That this little kid was the little kid they found was just a fantastic.
He was great. One of the best child actors, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think
next to the one who played young Amy.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've always done a really good job at finding great kids to play off of the Doctor and vice versa, and this was another in a long line of them. And then, when he grew up, it was funny. I saw the older one and I was like, I've seen this guy before, but I couldn't place him. And he turns out to be Justin Chatwin, whom I've been following him since he was a teenager. He's a great actor.
What has he been in? I can't remember.
He most recently has been on Shameless, the Showtime series, for several seasons of that run. He has always done a lot of guest shots. He was Lost for a couple of episodes, I think, and he was in Weeds. He played in the first season. He's pretty talented, and but he looked so much younger in this than he actually is. Like one of the last times I saw him, he looked his age, and in this one I don't know how they got him to look so much younger, but they did, so good for him. But he's a great actor, and I was glad to see that he got a good role to play. I love the whole interchange between him and his boss, the reporter, and how they kind of inverted the typical, and how they inverted the typical, superhero and love interest trope that you normally see in comics, and kind of turned that on its head. I thought it was sweet, and the point, spoiler for those of you who haven't seen it yet, but when she says, great, I just love the line near the end when she says, I prefer you when you're dressed in your superhero costume, and she puts the glasses on him. I was like, that was
because
choice.
You just said that, I'm going to mention something that a lot of people don't know that might interest people. I watched an interview with Stephen Moffat about the making of this episode, and everybody kept asking him, "What? Is this a ripoff of Superman? What are you trying to accomplish here?" Well, the reason Stephen Moffat made this episode or wrote it is because Christopher Reeve's portrayal of Clark Kent is one of the biggest inspirations of his entire professional career, because he was the true hero he felt, and Superman was the mask, not the other way around. And that's why when Lucy put the glasses on him, that was exactly what he was trying to say through that scene, was, this is the hero. This is the hero. And the other guy with the costume, that's just your mask. And it's kind of ironic, because Stephen Moffat looked at himself like Clark Kent, like, I'm behind a typewriter creating stories. And I feel like those are the unseen heroes, the people who give you this stuff, that write these things that you love to watch when they get made into a movie or a TV show, that you don't, everybody respects writers, but they don't realize the impact that they have. Kind of like, the actor's job is to be the face of the writing, or is to portray what you have created by sitting behind that computer in these days, or back then typewriter. But they're the ones who made it even happen in the first place for someone to then make you enjoy it. And that's the way he saw Clark Kent, because he had he had all these powers, but he chose to live this way. And so Moffat always felt like Superman was his job. It was his responsibility because he had these powers, but it wasn't who he was. Who he was Clark Kent. Superman was his job, and that's the way he was trying to portray it through this story. So I've seen a lot of people online calling this a ripoff of Superman. No, it's a tribute. This is a love letter. Moffat knows he's leaving, and Chris Chibnall is taking over, and he wanted to be able to express this while he can and tell this story, because he's not going to get a chance to do that like next Christmas. So that's a little trivia for people that don't know. Will, what did you think of the Doctor Who Christmas special?
Well, first of all, they had the thing with Doctor Who is, and I always worry about these because they've done it time and again, is when they cut somebody's brain out and put it in something else. That freaks me out. I don't like
those bad guys.
I don't like those kind of bad guys.
I don't either.
Leave the brains in the head. As soon as they got to that brain...
you have to admit, though, it was awesome when they zipped open
the head to pull out a gun. It just gives me the willies. Oh, but anyway, aside from that, for me, this was, again, I think it was a tribute. He's looking at the, surrounding media, especially with all of the superhero movies that are big blockbusters now, and he's paying homage to that. He's saying, look, even though, to me, Doctor Who is a superhero anyway, different kind of a superhero, because he's a little of a bit of a prick, if you will, because he does state his own opinion and thinks he's the bee's knees.
To be manic. If you think about
right, but he is, because he's 1,000 years old and he's seen everything, and he's
done.
Right.
He says
but anyway,
save everyone, and then he does it.
I liked the move. I liked this thing because they set it up great. They had the opening thing where he gives the kid the stone. The kid thinks it's medicine.
Yep.
Perfectly legitimate. You could not blame the kid. You could not blame the kid.
It's true. The kid's logic in it was impeccable.
Right. So that was perfect. He was sick. He told him he's sick. He gives him this little pill-like thing. He gives him a glass of water. And the kid's, it's medicine. He takes it.
Yeah.
So you cannot be angry with the kid because the kid did nothing wrong. So Doctor has to wait for this pill to pass. And we're all thinking what that is. He's going to have to crap it out at some point. He never does, though. It stays in his body somehow for 20-some-odd years. Jump forward 20-some years, he's now, the mild-mannered photographer, whatever he's doing, or the nanny,
yeah.
Right, with the glasses. And I loved the way that they situate, he's off, his girlfriend's in one room, I'll be right back. He zooms out of the thing with does something, says something.
The baby monitor.
Right, and as soon as she's talking to the doctor, she turns around, and then all of a sudden he's right there at the door. I'm right here. I love the way that they did that. It was very seamless. It's like, okay, he's zipping around, he's doing all his superhero stuff, but he still has time to make sure that...
And he's coming back, too. This ain't just a one shot. This is not...
So anyway...
I hope so, because he was great.
The actor who had obviously he's an American.
Ghost comics now on IDW.
Right. It was a great character. And I want to see him, not a recurring role, but periodically appear in a Doctor Who episode. But that's just great, right? All of a sudden, you've got a superhero that was created basically by the Doctor. He gave it or facilitated this person getting superhero powers.
Yep.
And the Doctor's like, look, you can't have these powers. It's not natural.
Just don't use them. Yeah, okay.
Right. But he did. Like, okay. He uses them. And, the ending was a little weak because they had the guys on top of the roof and they were going to take his brain. And then they were dropping the big ship on top of him and he catches catches it with one hand. That's
yeah,
a little
I agree
weak.
with you because he could have taken those guys out at any
right.
point.
So I mean, yeah. So
that was
if he can fly that fast and get between over the other side of the city and back to his apartment
really, I'm so fast I can't just grab the gun from your hand.
In a split second, he could have easily taken those guys out. So it was a little weak ending, but again, they had to have that love interest. Overall, I liked it. I did, it wasn't the Christmassy theme with the Santa Claus or the Father Christmas or anything like that, like they've done in the past.
The elements were there,
but not really. I mean, it was strictly by the superhero. And he's paying homage to the superhero genre that's now being in vogue, and you said, going back to Superman and the comic books, I think is a great tribute. I thought it was a great tribute and great shot from the Doctor series.
I want to make one quick point before I move on to Son's opinion. You reminded me of something. Not every people have been pointing out like it wasn't the most Christmassy. Not every Christmas special has been focused on the fact that it's Christmas.
Oh, I know.
Look at the next Doctor when the guy with the other screwdriver, the one that was in the past, and he thought he was the Doctor, and he had the Cyberman thing make him think he was the Doctor, and he had Rosalina, that black girl who was his companion. That was technically the Christmas special for that year, but the only part about it that had to do with Christmas was it took place during Christmas time in that year, and at the very end, he asked Ten to come join him for Christmas dinner, and he decided, you know what, just for once, you've convinced me, I'm going to say yes. But otherwise, the whole episode had nothing to do with Christmas. They don't always focus on Christmas, and people forget that.
Yeah, but again, the Christmas special is a fairly new edition. They've not always done the Christmas specials.
You're right. It's been new as far as 2005, though. It's been a while. It's been almost 11 years.
But it's common for shows on British television, though.
That's true. And Son, what did you... I'm sorry, Will, are you done? Or you have anything
I'm done.
To say?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. All right, and Son, what did you think of the episode?
Okay, so for the start of this, I have to say this episode actually encompassed, like, it started off and then went around and then finished around last year's Christmas special. Because
that's true.
The parts that take place with the little kid, when the kid gets superpowers, takes place before last year's Christmas special because...
chronologically,
interestingly enough, Capaldi is trying to fix all the stuff in New York that 11 broke because of Amy and Rory. And
thank you for pointing that out, because
I didn't catch
I don't think anybody, that wasn't explicit, and I was like, well, that's clearly what that machine is for. So I thought it was interesting.
For, you know what I'm saying?
I think it was to allow him to get into New York.
Okay, but does that possibly open the door? I'm not trying to sidetrack, but does that possibly open the door for him to be able to meet her again?
The thing was, he was trying to fix all of the temporal flux that was caused by the angels in Manhattan during that episode.
Okay, because they just showed up on Class.
Even though he may not be able to go back to the time that Amy and Rory were sent back to, there's still all of this temporal energy floating around that he has to get under control.
I'm going to have to rewatch it when this episode's over with, because I didn't catch why he was doing what he was doing in the beginning, so what the reason was. I thought
he didn't give a clear explanation. He basically said something about cleaning something up, didn't he, son?
Yeah.
Yeah, he said, I had some friends that I lost, and there's all this stuff running around, and I have to clean it up. That's what the wish gem was for, essentially.
That I am going to... Now you give me a good reason... or an excuse, which I don't mind, to go back and watch it again, because I have watched the episode, Jesus.
The second point is, the gem, he quite explicitly says that the gem is a wish gem.
Pretty much, it draws energy.
He's a little kid who's done nothing but read comic books, and what's a kid who's kind of lonely and off by themselves would like to do? Be a superhero.
Have you guys noticed... also, that in Doctor Who, there seems to be... I know this is true to life, but he didn't mention his dad. He just said his mom. So it's like saying that he's a kid of a single mom. I could be wrong, but I recall, like, he didn't mention his parents. He said mom. Like, that's like suggesting that, his dad's not in the picture for whatever reason.
Well, it's like the people who theorized that the reason that Andy and the baby and their mom had to leave the other houses because they were moving out because they, Andy's mom and his dad were actually getting a divorce, and that's why you never saw Andy's dad ever in any of the Toy Story movies.
Oh, good point. Wow.
But
that blows my mind.
That's one part of the story. The next, jumping ahead the 20-something years that takes place during last Christmas, you have Harmony Shoals, and if anybody here has ever played Fallout, Vault-Tec much?
I know what you're talking about, but I haven't played it.
All of these presidents and all of the important people of the world, and then they're going to replace them. Because they're going to blow up New York, and that's going to be the window dressing for, hey, come and live in our vault. It's safe, quote unquote. And like Vault-Tec in Fallout, all of the vaults have dubious medical experiments of some kind that are highly unethical.
Has anyone else noticed? I thought this was the first time I made a post about this, but it turns out I was mistaken because somebody on the Last of the Time Lords group that I help admin pointed out it wasn't actually the first time, but there's been 2 times that we've seen the American version of UNIT. This is the second, but the first one, I totally forgot about this, was in the Stolen Earth episode where Martha was working for the general or colonel from the New York unit, and the guy, he got killed by the Daleks, but I forgot about that part. Like, Martha had been assigned to the unit in New York, which technically would be an American division of the unit, and I thought this. I forgot all about that until she pointed this out in this group chat, but it's very rare that we see. Speaking of New York and American accents, not to squirrel on you, but while we have a few minutes to talk about it real quick, what did you guys think of the character of Lucy and the actress who played her, sort of the Lois Lane of this episode? Because we haven't mentioned her. I thought she was great. Do you guys like that little squeaky toy thing that she gave the Doctor? Do you think it's going to be used by...
No, that was annoying as hell.
I think the new companion...
Well, I think that was the point, though, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's annoying as hell, and you don't want to listen to it anymore.
It's an interrogation thing to make you talk.
Am I the only one that would... I guess I'm the only person that would have sat there and laughed the whole time that thing was squeaking at me.
Oh, I laughed.
That's annoying.
It was annoying, but I laughed because it was so effective on, he's a Time Lord, but he's still a little kid's toys, what, breaks him down.
Do you guys think that Bill, the new companion, is going to end up using that thing to annoy the Doctor? I think she will.
I think it might get old, so probably not.
I'm going to point something out real quick, because we have a time restraint. In the trailer for Season 10, Series 10, whatever you want to call it, I saw something that I posted about. Okay, if you pause it, right after the Doctor tells Bill we're in the middle of a war, the second when you hear the Wilhelm scream, guess who is being thrown against the wall doing the Wilhelm scream? It's a Movellan. The Movellan, there's 2 of them in that scene. You have to pause it right after you hear the Wilhelm scream. When the Doctor is basically telling Bill in a recreation of that scene that we got introduced to her from. I'm sorry. Who the Daleks are fighting is the classic android race, the Movellans. They have silver braided hair, almost like dreadlocks, and they're an android race. And they haven't been seen since the one episode they were in, Destiny of the Daleks, but they were mentioned many times later. Like, for example, Resurrection of the Daleks. The whole reason they brought Davros back was to help defeat this plague that the Movellans made that kills the Dalek mutants inside the shell, so on and so on. And so they're coming back. Now, whether they're just going to be in this one episode, we don't know. But when I paused it, you could clearly see 2 people with silver braided hair, Daleks talking about being in a war, one of them doing the Wilhelm scream, and they're both wearing silver white jumpsuits. No doubt about it, it is definitely the Movellans. Unless they're trying to mess with us and be like, what a coincidence, they look just like they're Movellans. Anybody else notice that?
I'm too new to Doctor Who for that to really...
No, I didn't
do
see
anything
that.
for me.
I didn't see that. So.
Destiny of the Daleks was the episode where the first Romana regenerated because she felt like it into the second Romana. She tried on several bodies, caused a lot of controversy because Mary Tam left as the first Romana. In the beginning of the episode, she simply decided, I feel like regenerating. So she's trying on all these different bodies, and they had just met the character Princess Astra in the episode before, and they didn't have time to, because she was pregnant and she left the show, her contract was up. So Lala Ward, who ended up later marrying Tom Baker, she said, I'll do it. But the problem was, they had to come up with an excuse why she looks just like this character they just met. So the excuse was, she liked how she looked. She felt like regenerating to look like her. She tried on different bodies, like it was like she's in a changing room, and doctors like, nope, you can't do that, no. Too tall, too small, green skinned, whatever. She tries on like 12 bodies. She comes out finally, and she looks like Princess Astra. And he's like, you can't go around stealing somebody's face. And she goes, why not? And he was just like, I guess, okay, you're right. He couldn't think of a reason why she couldn't. But anyways, long story short, that was the episode with the Movellans. So, don't mean to ramble. But, yeah, Romana introduced the concept that you can choose to regenerate if you feel like it. So, the only reason the Doctor's faces have been random is because he's been forced to regenerate because he's dying. There's a difference. So, if he really
you only get 12.
Well,
why would you use up one of your regenerations?
And that was one of the biggest arguments because it was her first. She had plenty left. The way she looked at it.
Yeah.
That's just a waste. That's stupid.
I know, but that's what happened. It's canon. It was the whole point of the episode was she felt like regenerating for no reason other than she felt like it.
Even Time Lords can make bad choices.
I remember being a kid watching Doctor Who.
You got to remember the Master was literally given an entire new set of regenerations.
Right.
Yeah, but this is the debate. When I was a kid, I watched Doctor Who religiously because it was on, and I watched it live. I watched them when they were first broadcast. This was in the 70s, and I was a kid. I was, young. And the things that we were talking about was, oh yeah, he's got 12 lives because they made it up so they could have a new actor come in when the old one.
Which was very clever, yeah.
But this the same way that Star Trek invented the teleporter because they couldn't afford the shuttle to go down to the planet. BBC invented the regeneration because they wanted to be able to have different actors come in because the same actor didn't want to play this part.
And not only that, but little trivia: when he did his first regeneration, his clothes changed too, but it hasn't happened since then.
No, because they picked their own clothes. But the thing is, we discussed it in the 70s and the 80s. Well, what happens when they get to 12? Oh, they'll never get to 12. The TV show will go off the air before they get to 12. It's going to get canceled. But now, here we are, 50 years lost, 40, 50 years later, and they're past 12.
And everybody kept arguing on that in that group for the last several years before 11's episode. And I was one of those people, and you know what I'm talking about, son. Everybody was like, no, they just ignored the whole regeneration rule. And I'm like, no, they're not. I even said that 10's hand-to-hand regeneration counted. And that was what they were going to use as an excuse. He just kept the same face because he even explained it in the episode. He said the only reason he didn't change his face is because he was able to discharge some of his energy into that hand. It had some kind of compatibility thing genetically. And so basically,
It was the I don't want to go.
Yeah. But you have to admit, that was a great cliffhanger. But it did count as a regeneration because everybody kept saying that didn't count. What he actually said was, if you listen to the episode, this is what annoyed me, is everybody's like coming up with these excuses for why, no, that didn't count. But if you actually listen to the words he says to Jack, Rose, and Donna, he says to them, he went through a regeneration. The only reason he didn't change his face is because of the hand. Other than that, it was a regeneration. It wasn't like a partial regeneration. It was a full regeneration. Anyways, I could go on about that for a whole episode by itself. But, so this was a shorter episode, but we focused on the things that I feel were two big topics mainly. I do want to say one thing real quick, and Carlos, I don't know how much time you have, but actually, Carlos, you've been talking about a show called The OC. I don't know how much time you have, but convince me I want to watch it on Netflix.
Okay, well, it's the OA. Because the OC was like 90210. But the OA is recently released on Netflix, a Netflix original series. Britt Marling, who's the star, is also one of the writers and producers of it. And it is an interesting examination. It's partly supernatural, partly science fiction, partly I'm not sure what, but I found it intriguing.
What's the basic premise? I've never even...
The basic premise is that Britt Marling plays this woman named Prairie Johnson, who disappeared 7 years earlier. And at the very beginning of the first episode, you see her climb onto a bridge and jump off. And that's literally the jumping off point for the series, in which you find out. Yeah, thank you. I'm here all week. Tip you, waitress. In which you find out episode by episode more and more of her story of what happened to her over those 7 years, and it's harrowing and philosophical and interesting. She gathers together this group of 5 people, a teacher and 4 boys, 4 high school boys, to tell her story to, with the objective of having them help her with an important mission that she has. And I won't go too far into it. If you need to have everything explained to you at the top of a series, this will not be the series for you.
How many episodes are in a season of this show?
8 episodes. It's 8 episodes. 8.
Oh, okay.
Let me tell you.
Sort of like
let me tell you.
Things.
I started watching the first one, and her neighbor, that boy, who was on the roof and jumping, and then she climbed. She tries to whatever. I saw him when he was at school, and he punched that kid in the throat, and I turned it off. I was like, what the hell is that? I mean, the guy was a douchebag. I didn't like that guy at all. I'm
apparently you need to give it a chance.
I know, but I just.
But that's where he's starting from. You have to understand that this is. I mean,
I know.
Part of what this is going on is it's a show about the power of storytelling, about how stories literally change people's lives.
But I was coming off Stranger Things, which is a very nice story. I mean, very well told and very nice. And here I'm into this show, and the first thing I'd see is this douchebag. He sets the dog on her, and then he punches the kid in the throat. I mean, it's just like, what the hell am I watching this? And so
it sounds like that was setting up.
I know what he's trying to do.
It's totally setting up. I mean, you have to
but
have
it did
a
not
character
appeal to
develop
me.
From somewhere, and if they start off in a bad place, there's no better way to demonstrate the power of storytelling than to have a character start off in that kind of place and end up in another one. And so, otherwise, that ending place has no real power.
I understand, but to me, the character, I've not watched the entire first episode yet. I got halfway through it. They did not jump to me straight off as being likable. Even her, even the protagonist, she doesn't want to be there. She says her name's not Prairie. She doesn't know. I mean, so I'm like,
trying to sound like Anthony did about the Flash this whole last season.
No. But like I say, I know, but. Again, I'm going to have to either push through what I don't like about this beginning episode.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
I'm just not going to start.
That the Flash was great this season because we watched the episode. Remember how many times he kept telling us he walked away like in the middle of the episode because Barry's whining about Iris again, and he's like, forget it, I'm done, and he just walks away.
But again,
no, it got better.
No. But that's different. These are characters that I am coming to fresh. I have no preconceived notion about them. And whenever I watch a show, the first thing I want to do is feel some kind of either rapport, especially with the protagonist. Now, the supporting cast, I can have antipathy or, despair or whatever other feelings for them. But for the protagonist, I've got to feel some kind of connection, and I didn't. And I don't know whether they're being set up for this. I mean, maybe it's luring me into it. It's a very different show.
It is a very different show. And I think you need to understand what Netflix is doing here, because you're going to see a lot more shows like this. Netflix makes its programming decisions very much based on data about how people who watch Netflix watch shows on Netflix. And
like an attention span kind of thing?
It's partly attention span. It's also they look very carefully at how people decide whether to stick with a show. And on broadcast networks, they are all built around a pilot episode that has to sell viewers and sell networks to buy the show, and then viewers to watch it. And that is not the paradigm that Netflix's data says people use when they're deciding on watching a Netflix show. They will give a show much more than one viewing before they decide, yes, I'm going to stick with it, or no, I'm going to leave it off. And it's much more, it's closer to like between 4 and 7 episodes that they're willing to give to a
and that's what I
series.
usually do. That's what I usually do.
It makes sense because if you think about it, like we all know that Star Trek Discovery is going to be on CBS All Access. They're not going to use the same model as Netflix and Amazon Prime. They're going to make you wait, even though you subscribed. You can't just, they're not just going to like do a Luke Cage, which I wish they would, where you just drop the whole season and you watch it at your leisure. They're making everybody go week by week by week because they don't want people to unsubscribe because they watched it already and then go, oh, I'll just resubscribe next season, and lose the money in the meantime. They want people to drag out that you have to pay continuously to see that next episode, Netflix has the confidence. They know if they drop Stranger Things Season 2, which is going to be coming up here pretty soon, that everybody's going to watch it. They're still going to be subscribed, and they're going to want to see what else is coming out because Netflix
but you have to remember that Netflix is 10 years on.
That's true.
CBS All Access is barely getting started. So, Netflix did not do this for a long time until they were really well established. So it's sort of apple and oranges.
Which creates the confidence, is what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, I wish, because when I look at these type of shows, and when Luke Cage dropped, I watched it. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys one real quick thing. And son, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I knew you were trying to say something. In fact, son, what were you about to say?
Well, I was going to make 2 points. One, Netflix does have original programming that is released week after week after week, and not all dropped at once. Yeah.
Like what?
There's a talk show-ish show, I think, that's on there that's released weekly, and it might all be out now at this point, but it was released weekly.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. But another thing that I want to point out is some of the storytelling that is actually released on Netflix, it kind of has to be all hot dropped at once. Because go back and look at anything from Orange is the New Black, and you physically make yourself sit down once a week to watch it and tell me if you can keep up with the story.
You know what? You made a good point because Voltron was like that for me, and what I was about to mention real quick, the show that I was going to... Carlos, you did convince me to watch the OA. I'm going to check it out after... Actually, I'm going to check it out, at least the first episode, and try to get past where Will shut it off. Punch the throat. Okay, I'll remember that part. Check mark. But Troll Hunters, okay? Pixar and Netflix joined forces. I have been blown away by this series. I'm only halfway through this. They have a 20... Unlike the other ones, it's a 26-episode season. I'm only on episode 13. This show is unbelievable. And it's like the animation quality is Toy Story level. Actually, it's better than that. And this is a series. They finished season 1. They already talked about season 2. And it's based off a book that the dude wrote, the director, I can't remember his name. But the story... Oh, Anton Yelchin, I think that's how you pronounce it. The guy who played Chekhov that passed away. Plays the voice of Jim, the main character. And what's great about this series is his relationship with his mom. And now I know it sounds weird, but the story's about an amulet. And there's a world of trolls around us. And there's a troll hunter, the bad trolls and the good trolls and gnomes. And the bad trolls are being... there's always a troll hunter. And this amulet chooses the next troll hunter. This time it chose a human. And his name is Jim Lake. Him and his buddy, his little buddy there, they end up getting involved. And he becomes basically like a paladin. He gets an amulet, gets a sword, armor. Whenever he summons Merlin's power or whatever, he gets immersed in this world. Incredible voice acting, incredible animation. And the director, again, I can't remember the guy's name, and I really am feeling bad for it. I don't want to Google it right now because I feel like that's, I don't want to do that. So if I can't remember his name, then I apologize, but you guys can look it up. Just Google it. Troll Hunters, whoever the director is. They asked him to re-record after Anton died, before they released it on Netflix. They asked him because they want to do season 2, because all the people who were the shareholders that saw the show ahead of time knew this was going to be a hit. And they said, but we want the same voice for the next season, so can you please redo all the lines that Anton recorded? And he said no. And I gave a big-ass cheer and a clap when I found that out because he refused. He said, no. If we have to get a new voice actor for season 2, the audience can handle it. But I'm not going to take Anton's work and say, no, we're going to chuck it just because the dude died. I was very happy to hear about that. So check it out. It's called Troll Hunters. I'm only it's a long season. It's 26 episodes. It's utterly, like Sun was just saying, there's so, and in this case, unlike Luke Cage where there's 13 episodes and whatever, this is 26 episodes. I got to episode 13 within 3 days. I couldn't stop binge watching it. But you can only handle so much, you watch it. You only have so much time on your hands. And you want to, process it, too. You don't want to, burn your brain out, So, I think Netflix has the right model. You're going to watch the shows at your pace. And you're going to... But the fact that you have that power, that you have that choice, I think it would be nice if CBS All Access adopts this model for Star Trek in the future. Because I think that they are being too worried about the fact that Star Trek hasn't been out, on TV since Enterprise, and they're too concerned with underestimating their audience. And I think Netflix has proven.
I think they're doing exactly what they need to do.
Do you really?
I think they need to get people to anticipate on a weekly basis. I think eventually, if they're successful, you'll see that kind of thing happen down the road.
All right,
I just don't think they're going to be successful.
Well,
I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it.
We don't know.
I personally,
you sound just like the people before Next Generation and Deep Space Nine and Voyager.
I'm a Star Trek fan. I am not going to buy. I'm not going to buy the access. I'm not going to watch it. I'm not.
Well, that's your choice, but
no, it is. But I'm thinking there's a lot of people like me.
Well, hold on, Will.
They're not going to.
That's the whole reason why they're releasing the first episode for free, so that you can decide: is this worth going forward with? Do you want to? You get the preview. Do you want to pay to see more? See, you at least have the option of getting a free preview through that first episode, the pilot.
And
it's not even just it's not even just like an intro pilot. We're talking about a 2-hour premiere, kind of like the original Voyager opening.
Yeah, I think if you look at it simply on a monetary basis, you're paying what, $6 a month, $7 a month for all access. So that means 4 episodes for $7, 8 episodes for $14. That's that's less than you pay for a movie ticket, and you're getting 8 to 12 hours of entertainment. Yep. So this notion that somehow you can't afford it when you spent that much money to go see a 2-hour Star Trek Beyond, it's just facile.
It's not it. It's the once a week. It's the wrong model. You've got to put them all out now. I'm sorry, it's the wrong model. Netflix has the right move. Put them all out. Let people choose when they want to watch it. They want to pay $9 to get all 24 episodes.
You can choose when you want to watch it. It's just you have to wait in between those.
No, that's what I'm saying. Today's society is the wrong model.
You don't understand that. Yes, Netflix has built up what it is based on 10 years of history. And All Access does not have 10 years of history. And if every other if every other entertainment source was doing bingeable stuff, dropping all at once, I'd say yes, the culture has changed, but the culture has not changed. Network television, cable television still does weekly episodes.
And go ahead.
And even Hulu and Netflix have some things they drop weekly. So there has not been a huge shift yet in viewer habits. Netflix just knows and has figured out based on data how they can package their original series in order to take advantage of what the viewing habits that they've seen emerge amongst their subscribers. Well,
I'm sorry, I've got to disagree. Because there's people that are unplugging.
Data, Will.
There's people that are unplugging. Data. They're unplugging from the cable. Look at. These cable companies are losing money now
because they have to wait a week. They're unplugging because it's expensive.
But they're also plugging. Say, oh look, I can get Hulu and just watch what I want, or I can get Netflix, and it's just to me this is the future. This is where media is going.
Son, what were you about to say?
Having known Will for the amount of time that I have known him, this is absolutely hilarious to me because Will always talks about hating an instant gratification culture, and this is exactly the argument he's making.
Wow.
But for the media, I'm not saying this. I'm not saying that I like it, but I mean, for me, this is where it is. That's why I don't.
Hold on.
Well, that's where I think it's going to be.
I will agree with you on this, Will. I think it is the future. But we're still in the present. So, yes, they need to move to that.
Do you remember when AOL
eventually.
Do you guys remember back in 95 when AOL first came out and the internet was the thing? It was new. You had Windows 95, and the first thing that came out that everybody was jumping on board with, which is sort of the equivalent of Netflix, was AOL. So all of a sudden you hear, you got mail. That was the whole, new thing. And then slowly we got Earthlink, and we got, all these other things. It took a long time before AOL's now a thing of the past. But, how many years had to go by through trial and error to figure out which model for your new internet works? I did air quotes, by the way. You can't see it. And I did it with one hand because I had hit my button. But you had to figure out which model was going to be the thing that would become the standard. This is where they're at with this. They're trying to... This streaming... excuse me. This streaming type of TV viewing is going to be... Netflix set a standard. They set a precedent. And over there, I look at them like AOL. 10 years from now, they're going to be like MySpace. They're going to be like AOL. Netflix, who? What? Maybe. We don't know. Because they're making a lot of money. So,
Okay,
at
George.
this point, it's more actually... It's more comparable to compare Netflix right now to Steam. Because
Amazon Prime
Netflix, what Netflix does, Netflix is a monster that exists because it's existed already at this point. If Netflix was a new thing coming into the market, it would be steamrolled by just about every other competitor because every other source is now creating their own thing. And we're having this same thing happen in the gaming industry under Steam. Steam was the forebearer, and it exists because it's its own monster, but now every other game company is starting to create their own kind of Steam
The only way
thing.
you can compete is to not be greedy. And I sort of sympathize with Will in that CBS All Access if everybody's used to this model that Netflix has created. And I agree with Will in that sense. But at the same time, I kind of understand because they're nervous. Star Trek, it's like if Michael Hyman was here, and I invited him, but he never got back to me. If Michael Hyman was here, he would say, you guys don't forget, you need to remember, Star Trek as a franchise is a niche. We think it's awesome and it's huge. It's not as big as we think. It's like... that's why they don't just... It's not like Star Wars large, where they know... That's why they paid $4 billion to buy it off Lucas, because they knew what they were going to get their hands on and what they could do with it, which obviously they have done a lot of good things. Star Trek, it's a nervous... it's like one of those things like... it's like taking an old... Like Brooke Shields, it would be like... making her become the star of a TV show when she hasn't done anything in like a million years, and saying... Well, she used to be awesome, so if we get her as the star of our show, we're guaranteed that this new show will be a hit. As the world knows, that doesn't always happen. Just because you bring back somebody that used to be popular and hip. That'd be like if they wanted to make a new version of Happy Days and you took Henry Winkler.
George, doesn't Carlos have to go? He said he was going to be for an hour. Right?
Yeah, I do. I'm sorry, I have to bug out.
We could talk about this for hours, but again,
well,
I don't want to.
Let's do it at another time. Like, it'd be good to continue, sort of what's the present and future of this. Because, I mean, I agree with you overall, Will. I
am not saying that I like the model. I'm just saying, and also for me, personally, from a personal level, Star Trek has always been on free TV. I just would like it to be.
But the thing to remember there is that on free TV, it is traditionally not done so great. I mean, that's the thing. Is
syndication was the new thing back when Next Generation.
Right.
Next Generation did, but I mean,
not really. Right. They syndicated it. I mean.
Well, and
that's
created a new market in terms of of first run syndication. It really didn't exist before Next Generation, and it opened the door because it was freed from the requirement to have to win a time slot.
Yes, exactly.
Why
allowed them to choose when they want to.
Again, right. I don't want to get into this right now because it's supposed to be New Year's. Let's all be happy. Let's
all
end on a good note.
I love arguing.
Let's all end on a good note.
I'm gonna have
Let's
to
come back in the new year and discuss this.
We're going to kill everybody's buzz because scientists have said that they're adding a second to the end of this year.
We have an extra second for someone else to die in 2016.
Oh man!
Bye, Will.
There we go.
I'm sorry, Will. I'm gonna warn you.
So 2016 is literally going to last 1 second too long.
I'm gonna make a new podcast called "I Mourn Will." No,
I'm not going anywhere.
Well, if we still hear your voice and you did go, then somebody's.
Then there's something wrong. I'm haunting you.
If they can digitally recreate Carrie Fisher,
but if William Shatner dies, then we are going to come and kill you, George.
It's not a if William Shatner. It's just a when.
No, but if he dies if he dies before that New York ball drops, then it's George's fault.
Now that the episode title now has to be "If William Shatner Dies." ...
Where in the world is William Shatner?
Where can people find you on social media, Carlos?
Well, I am at axamonitor.com and also on Twitter at axamonitor. And I'm just going to give a quick plug. I just published today an illustrated guide to the Axanar copyright lawsuit, which explains the whole case in comic book format. So if you want to understand what's going on with Axanar you want to do it in a visual format,
I could have a whole comment on that, Carlos, but I'm not going to.
We're going to have you. I'm going to ask you back to the show at a future time to. Well, by then it'll be even better. Maybe the case will be over, but to get a good update because it's been so. And I'm trying to get you and him to both come on because there's been so much that's been going on with Axanar since the last time we addressed it on this show. That I do want to devote an episode to the case.
Great. Well, the trial starts in almost exactly a month. So
really,
yeah.
It has gone to trial. I've been keeping up, sort of, but it's just always something.
At this point, yes, it's still headed to trial unless the judge is supposed to be ruling on a summary judgment motion, and chances are that he will reject those motions. But it also could. He could, if he does that, it basically decides the case or a good chunk of the case. So unless that happens, most of the lawyers I know think it won't. But unless that happens, it will go to trial unless a settlement happens. But that's not likely either. So chances are it will go to trial starting January 31st.
Yeah, my only 2 cents about that is in layman opinion, but I don't think he'll settle because I think personally Mr. Peters is a narcissist, and I think that he wants to make a point. It's not about the money. It's about making what his view is, in his mind, a historical precedent that he and his name can be tagged in so that 20 years from now, people can go, and he set that precedent because he fought the man. You know what I'm saying? But anyways. All right, and Will, where can people find you on social media?
On Twitter at Intrinsicus, that's Intrinsic with a US on the end.
And Son?
You can follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/SunsealFan. That's usually where I post episodes of where I co-host Tribbles and Ecstasy. So that's a Star Trek-oriented podcast. If you want to check it out, go and check it out.
Good friends of ours. In fact, this TeamSpeak that we're in doing this show was generously allowed for me to use by Steve, the main host of Tribbles and Ecstasy, good friend of mine. And Super Geeks is a Live, Love, Play production. Live, Love, Play is also associated with Busy Little Beaver Productions. And you can follow us on Subspace Radio when they syndicate us, which is usually every Thursday, and you can check their schedule for when. All right, I want to thank you. My name is George. Chooch99A is my Twitter. I want to thank you guys for joining us for this special episode, and we'll talk to you next time.